Hi, welcome to this SQL tutorial video, and today we're going to look at aggregate functions. Now, an aggregate function allows you to take detailed data and return summary data. So in an example that I've got on screen here, I've got a list of customers and their order details, order date and the value of each order. It's in a detail, so you've got 3 orders here for this first customer here. What I want to see is actually, maybe I want to see a single line for my customer and the amount of orders that they've placed. So in this case, it would be 3 for this first customer, 3 orders. Or maybe I want to see the total value of the orders that they've placed. Or maybe I want to see the latest order date. So there's all of these aggregate functions, and what it basically means is you are summarizing based on, in this case, the first name and last name of their orders. So we're going to do a few examples in this tutorial. It's kind of easy to show you how an aggregate function works rather than trying to explain it. I'm also going to show you the way that you've got to set things up. I'm going to show you how you can limit and use your aggregate functions to limit the data returned, and also the kind of do's and don'ts and the rules around aggregate functions. So there are lots of aggregate functions. I'm going to just do a few today, but let's begin with saying what I want to see is, but for each customer, for each first name and last name, I want to know how many orders they've placed. So let me begin by taking out those last 2 columns here. There is a list of all the customers linked to my sales order header table, which is why I'm getting multiple values per customer. I don't want multiple values per customer. I want a single entry for each customer. I want to know how many orders they've placed. So to do that, I'm going to add a 3rd column, and we're going to put our first aggregate function, and it's going to be count. Now, what count does is it basically takes whatever I say, in this case, it can be first and last name, and it counts how many first and last name entries there are in this table. So what I expect to see is this first name, last name, and then in this first example, the number 3, and then the number 1 and 1 and 1, and then 2 for this Aaron Bryant, and however many there is for this Aaron Con. But it will just show me a single line for each customer, and then the amount of lines returned in this example. If I put count now, the count aggregate function, you've got to put brackets and you've got to put something within the brackets. There's different things you can do here, but generally you'll just put a star in there. That just means count everything. You can do other things which we'll cover in other videos, but generally, certainly in this example, count bracket star bracket is going to work. And I'm just going to give that an alias. If I try and run this, which I will, we'll get an error, because in order to complete an aggregate function piece of SQL, you've got to put the group by. You've got to tell SQL what it is you're kind of grouping by. And in this case, I want to see individual first name and last names. And that's my group by. So I'm saying to SQL, right, for each first and last name, give me a count. If I will not, we now get first name, last name, and then the value. So that Aaron Con had 12 orders. So that's pretty good. Let's imagine then I don't want to know the count necessarily. I want to know the total for each of the customers, total order value. So, in fact, no, total due value. So I'll get rid of this. Let's just go back, and I need to get rid of the group by. Let us now just put a new line in here, and we're going to use something called sum. And what sum does is it adds all of it expects a numeric value here, and it adds them all up. So we've got this column called sh.total due, and if we add that here, now because we've added an aggregate function again, this one called sum, we need to put the group by back in. If I run that, we're now getting a total for each customer's orders. Now we are able to put as many aggregate functions we like in here. So I can go back and I can add that count back in. And I run that, and now we've got our count column, and we've got our total column. So as long as you're setting things up with regard to the group by, then everything will be fine. You can add as many of these things as you like. So let's do another example. We have this order date. Let us imagine we want to see the date of the latest order. Well, we can do that. So I'm going to put another column, and I'm going to do max. Max requires in brackets a value or a date, or an alphanumeric field. And what it will do is it will get the latest value, be it a date or be it a number or be it a bit of text. So if I do max order date, and I'll do latest. If I run that, we're now getting the latest order date. Or I can change that to min, or I can add the value, another column for min, and that's the earliest order date. So we've got, like I said, there's quite a few of these. So we've got min and max, like I've just shown you. You've got AVG, which returns the average order value for each customer. So there's a lot of different things you can do here. Now, instead of that, let's think about limiting the values, or maybe let's add a new column in. So let's say I want to also add an extra piece of detail to do with the person. So let's say we want to add in the last time they were modified. Okay, now if I try and run this, I want to get an error. That modified date that I've added is not an aggregate function. I haven't put min or max or anything like that. I've just said I want to see for each person their modified date. Now in that case, I need to take that and add it to my group by, because all of a sudden it is part of my, it's part of the initial data I want to see. First name, last name, modified date, and then count, sum, min, max, whatever. So I need to make sure I add that into this bit here. If I didn't, now this really doesn't work in this example, but I could also have just said max here. And that would also allow this to work. It doesn't change the value because there is only a single value in this table, but either you make this new value an aggregate function or you add it to the group by syntax at the bottom. Now let's think about limiting the values that we're getting returned here. So let's imagine I'm not interested in any of the customers that have ordered that have placed one order. I want to see only customers that have placed more than one order. Usually for that sort of thing, you would put a where clause in. Now that doesn't work with aggregate functions. If I do where count greater than 1, it won't like it. Because we're dealing with aggregate functions, we've got to do things ever so slightly differently. So let's take that out. What we need to do is add, in fact, this error will say it, subquery contained a having clause. Sorry, there is the having clause here. We need to put in something called a having clause. So when you're dealing with aggregate functions, you've got your group by set up. Order by is exactly the same. But in order to do filtering, you type this thing called having. And when you put having, you can then put an aggregate function in there and use it as if it was a where clause. So if I do that, it's now limiting it to only orders, only customers that have placed more than one order. Or I could say 10. And I run that. And now it's limiting. And you can do the same thing. You can say having count greater than 10 and sum sh dot total due greater than 10,000. And now we're limiting on this column and we're limiting on this column. The last thing I want to show you is the rules about these three bits of syntax here. So you've got group by, having, and order by. They've got to be in that order. Group by first, having in the middle, and order by. If you're having all three, you've got to do it in this order. if I move this group by to the bottom here, it will fail, and I will get the error here. So it's not a very helpful error, just saying this, the syntax error. It doesn't say anything about the order, but that's what it is. You've got to have it in this order. And one easy way of remembering the order is it's alphabetical, GHO. So when you're doing aggregate functions and you've got these three pieces of syntax, put them in alphabetical order, GHO, and everything will work fine. That's the end of this tutorial. I hope it was helpful. I hope there was something new that you didn't know. Any feedback is appreciated. Thanks a lot for your time. See you next time.